Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show. And today's show is on self love. In last week, I had a couple of people who asked me to speak about this, and I thought that, I would speak about self love today. Let me know in the comments below if you are watching the replay. Type in replay in the comments below. And I'm really happy to have you here. I'm happy to connect with you whether you're watching the live or you are watching the replay. So self-love. Um, uh, if you're on Facebook, please click the link in the description for StreamYard to give it permission so that I can see who you are, because I cannot see your name otherwise. I just see you as Facebook user. Hi, Shirika. Good to have you live. Today, I'm going to talk about self-love, um, and I actually want to talk about, my first experience of self-love, right? So in the early 90s, I think it was in 1992, maybe it was 1993, I came across books of Cryon. Lee Carroll, he channels Cryon, and I found the Cryon books. Hi Dipti, hi Joseph, hi Shaheen. It's lovely to have all of you live. So I found the Cryon books, and Cryon is spelled with Kryon, right? And one of the, hi Parveen, it's so good to connect with you after so long. So one of the first things that when I opened the book, and the first sentences, one of the first sentences I read was, "You are dearly loved," and it was also about Kryon, not A, just Kryon. And, the whole, I don't have the exact words right now, but basically the whole thing was that it was talking about the love of God. And, he spoke about the thing that, no matter what you've done, no matter how bad you think you are, no matter how much you judge what you have done, how many bad things you think you may have done, you know regardless of any of that, God loves you, right? Hi Kimberly. And that, for me, at that point of time, was like a really radical concept, because till then all I had heard was that, if you do good things, then you will go to heaven. If you do bad things, you will go to hell. And so if I did anything quote unquote bad, like if I was selfish, or if I was angry, or if any of those things, I would sit and judge myself, and I would think like I'm such a horrible person. And for the first time, I read about this whole new concept of, no matter who you think you are, no matter what you think you've done, and you are dearly loved. And that, for me, was totally radical. It totally transformed everything about me. And, when I look back, what I realized was that before that, I was so much in judgment about myself. I had so much judgment about myself. And, if I even look back, I don't really think that I did some really nasty or bad or mean things. But the only thing that's quote unquote bad that I think that I had done at that point was that, I would disagree with people, or I would get into verbal fights with people, or any of those kind of things. And then after that, I would just continue to blame myself. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I get so angry? Because I used to be really angry. I had a lot of anger. Like my mom used to tell me, you have anger sitting on the tip of your nose. And that's what my whole experience was. And I used to consider myself a bad person just because I was angry all the time. And so this whole concept of, no matter how bad you think you are, you are dearly loved and God loves you just the way you are. It totally transformed my whole thinking. And then one of the first tools that he gave, Lee Carroll or Cryon gave at that point of time, was co-create peace with everything. Like, the first thing that you do is you co-create peace with whatever is going on around you. And I really took that tool and I started using that tool in my daily life. So if anything occurred and I ended up feeling bad about myself or ended up feeling bad about the situation, I would just say, I would like to co-create peace here. I would love to have peace here. I just like to have peace here. And initially, I do remember when I said that, it didn't really work, but that was the tool that I had with me. And I started using that, and I started using that all the time. And very soon it started to work for me. And so, instead of going to this place of judging myself, or even if I went to this place of judging myself, very quickly I would come to this thing of just being peaceful with it, you know and then just the moment I created peace with that, I found that my judgment about myself started to go away. And that created a lot of space in my universe. Now, the thing with us is that, this whole reality, the default is judgment. And the first person you will actually judge for anything and everything is actually yourself. Like, really look at your own life, and how much do you actually judge yourself for everything that you do? Even if even if there is an accident on the road, we find ways of judging ourselves, right? Hi Elena, lovely to have you. Hi Karen, hi Stacy, hi Aditi, lovely to have all of you live. So, the first thing in self love is really about being conscious of the fact that we go into judgment, that we judge ourselves, we make ourselves wrong, we criticize ourselves, we doubt ourselves. Like, how many of you actually do this? Right? So let me know how many of these things that you are doing, self judgment, self criticism, self doubt, making yourself wrong. And if you go a little bit in the extreme of it, people will also go into punishing themselves, right? And beating themselves up. These are also some of the more extreme forms of judgment, right? So all of us get into that. So the first thing to recognize is the fact that you are doing it. And once you recognize that, yeah, I am doing it, then it's like being conscious of when you get into it, and just saying, okay, you know what, I'm in that self judgment mode right now, and never mind, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right? Just catching yourself. Like, it's that thing with anger also, right? Where you are like, if you catch yourself being angry, and in that moment you go, oh, I'm angry, what happens is that the anger starts to dissipate, it starts to go away, right? So I'm going to do a few releases with you guys today. So let's do this, okay? So everywhere, uh, everywhere where you are judging you, let's release on that. So in these releases, I will say, let's release on that, and then I'll go silent. And in that silence, I'm actually doing the release. Okay. So if you think there is silence, in the silence, I'm releasing stuff for you. So everywhere where you are judging yourself, let's release on that. And everywhere where you are criticizing yourself, let's release on that as well. And everywhere where you are making you wrong, let's release on that. And everywhere where you are blaming yourself, let's release on that as well. And everywhere you are doubting yourself, let's release on that as well. Okay, now all of you, let me know how you're feeling. Like, what do you experience after this? Okay, now here's the thing, when we go into judging ourselves, when we go into making ourselves wrong, criticizing ourselves, and all of those things, what happens is that the next thing we go into is guilt. Okay, so everywhere you are in guilt about something that you have done or not done, let's release on that as well. Now, there's something really interesting about guilt. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but whatever you're feeling guilty about, you will actually repeat it over and over again, right? So if you are feeling guilty that you got angry and you shouted at someone, right? So what will happen is that you will repeat it again, because the guilt has this quality, it will ensure that you repeat that thing again. So if you feel guilty about something, for sure you're going to repeat it. So if you don't want to repeat it, then you have to let go of the guilt. Okay, so all the guilt that you have, let's release on that. And then, associated with guilt is also shame. So all the shame that you have, let's release on that as well. So so also the self judgment and all these things are a default, right? So the first thing you reach for is judging yourself, no matter what is going on in your life. Okay, so everywhere, yeah, yawns are good. For me, when I do release and something is really releasing, I'll start yawning, and then I start watering and so on. So yawns are really good. And there are many different ways in which, energetic shift will show up for you. So the other thing is that, our default at judgment. Okay, so all the defaults that keep you uh, judging yourself, making yourself wrong, criticizing yourself, blaming yourself, doubting yourself, let's release on that. Wow, that one was really heavy, like, could you guys perceive that shift? So I guess a lot of us are defaulting to judgment. Okay, so everywhere where you are prone to judging yourself, let's release on that as well. And all the programs and patterns that keep you judging yourself, let's release on that as well. Yeah, Dipti says, could we release on judging ourselves for not liking someone? So, this is like a really specific thing, and of course, I will release on this, but that's how it is. It's like you're looking for those tiny little reasons to keep judging yourself. Okay, and it can be anything. So in this case, for not liking someone, so everywhere where you are judging yourself for not liking someone, let's release on that. So how are you guys feeling after that? Do you perceive a shift has occurred? And so what is underneath all that judgment? Only when you stop judging yourself, what happens is that, things will start to change for you, and you start to get a sense of freedom. Like, when there is no judgment of self, it's what is available is something different. Okay, so everywhere you are judging. So one very integral part of self judgment is also judgment about bodies, right? Because when we look in the mirror, who do we see? We judge our body, and it's really amazing, the amount of judgment we have for our bodies. Okay, and I did a course on weight loss a couple of years ago. And one of the first things that we worked on was on judgment of bodies. So, in the first week, we worked on judgment of bodies, and people had the most amount of change when we actually released the judgment of bodies. Like, people had physical healings occur, people lost weight, people stopped eating, they stopped having food cravings, and all kinds of amazing shifts occurred when they stopped judging their bodies. Okay, so everywhere you are judging yourself for your physical body, let's release on that. And everywhere, okay, so now someone said not judging yourself for not liking you. So instead of the judgment, let's release the not liking. So everywhere you don't like yourself, let's release on that. And everywhere you hate yourself, let's release on that as well. So you cannot really have self love when you actually don't love yourself, when you hate yourself. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm releasing each one of these things. Okay, so everything within you and outside of you that stops you from having total allowance of yourself, let's release on that. So allowance is when you look at yourself and have no point of view about it. Okay, so that's allowance. So according to me, self love is actually having allowance. So allowance is where you have an awareness of everything that you are, that you be, that you do, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you having total allowance for everything, you having no judgment for anything that you are being, anything that you are doing, or any of that. See, the thing is, if you try too much to be good, good is a point of view. Okay, it is just a point of view. Like what is good according to someone may not be good according to you. So if you are trying to fit into the box of good, what that creates is a lot of judgment for yourself. Because if someone is saying something is good, then what it means is that there is something which is bad. And so if you are trying to avoid the bad and only fit into the good, it's going to create a lot of funk in your universe. Okay, so everywhere you are trying to fit into the box of good and avoid the bad, let's release on that. And everywhere you are trying to fit into the box of good and avoid evil, let's release on that as well. And everywhere you are being polarized into right or wrong, let's release on that as well. So, how many of you are getting cross-eyed at this point of time? Like, I am totally getting cross-eyed because, like, things are just shifting so much. Like, these things are so strong in all of us, right? This is literally the default of this reality. Like, this whole reality is set on good, bad, good, evil, right, wrong, shoulds and shouldn'ts, and all of that. And the moment you go, against this way or that way, you go into self judgment, right? So all the shoulds and shouldn'ts that are solidified in your life, let's release on that. And by the way, if you have any suggestions for topics for future shows, let me know in the comments, because I always have to sit and think, what am I going to talk about next week? So I'd love to have your input on that. So everywhere, you have a polarization. What it will do is it will create judgment. So either it will create judgment for yourself or it will create judgment for others. So everywhere where you are defaulting to polarization and judgment, let's release on that. Wow. So that had a lot of charge, that thing about that bit about polarization. What else? What else? Let me know what's showing up for you guys. And I know for a lot of you, you might be like in a total blank space, because when you do these kind of releases, it kind of gets really, you just get blank kind of a thing. Shaheen says, I'm feeling heavy in my head. Um, so how much of that is invalidation of yourself? So, invalidating yourself means actually making yourself wrong. Okay. So, all the invalidation that you have about yourself, let's release on that. How's that now, Shaheen? Let me know in the comments below. Heavy chest. Okay, all the heaviness you have in your chest, because remember, we are talking about self-love. So what is related to love is your heart chakra, right? So all the invalidation of yourself, that is showing up as heaviness in your chest. Let's release on that. Hi Manjari, good to have you live. Hi Bhavna, hi Joseph. Yeah, I realize I actually hate myself. Yeah, it's like a great insight to have. So now you can just keep releasing on the hate that you have for yourself, right? How's your chest, Joseph? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Um, so one of the things about allowance is being willing to look at ourselves, being willing to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and have no point of view about it. Okay, so I used to really avoid. I used to really avoid feedback. I used to avoid, like having been in this field for really so long, I realize, I realize um, how how many people surround me who actually don't have judgments about me, right? But when you go in the outer world, as it were, so say for example, if you're working in your job, so you have something called as your job appraisal, so people will critique you for the way you're doing your job. I worked with a client, and she was working in customer service, and she said to me that I actually really avoid my job. I don't enjoy my job at all, because what happens is that each of our conversations is recorded, and sometimes the customer can complain about you, and you will go through an evaluation based on their complaint, right? And for me, I used to be one of those persons who totally avoided that. I did not want anyone to criticize me. I did not want anyone to give me feedback about anything and things like that, because the moment I would read that, I would go into judging myself, and I would just end up feeling really bad about myself. So, what I started to do was that every time somebody judged me or I perceived somebody's judgment for me, I took it up and I started releasing on it. Like, one of the things that I've realized is that all the things that actually trigger me, it's a treasure for me, because I can now take those things that treasure that trigger me, and I can release on those things, so that I become so that it no longer pushes my buttons anymore, right? So so everywhere you are judging yourself based on other people's judgments of you, let's release on that as well. And everywhere you are trying to avoid other people's judgments of you as well, let's release on that. So so, one of the biggest fears that people have is fear of being judged. Okay. And here's the thing, when you actually start releasing all kinds of self judgment, you will no longer be afraid of others' judgments, because you will come to such a place of allowance within yourself that when you look at other people judging you, you will then be able to see them as actually speaking through their own judgments, and mostly it's their own judgments about themselves. So, like, have you noticed when people judge you about something, they are actually doing the same thing that they are judging you for? And you will only be able to see it, like actually get it, when you stop judging yourself. And stopping judging yourself and being an allowance of yourself is not like a one time thing. It's an ongoing journey. It's like catching yourself judging you every moment, and then choosing to not judge you anymore. Okay. Now, you know remaining in judgment is safe and familiar, because this is like, this is part of something that is safe, that is safe and familiar for yourself. Okay. And remaining remaining free of judging yourself is unsafe and unfamiliar. So think of think of a time when you don't judge yourself anymore for anything. And for most people, you will not even be able to go to that space, because it is so unsafe and unfamiliar. So, Shirika, fear of being left alone if I stand up for myself. So, this whole conversation is really not about standing up for yourself or not standing up for yourself. This conversation is all about all the places, spaces where you actually judge yourself, criticize yourself, make yourself wrong, hate yourself, and it's like, being willing to catch yourself doing it and then letting it go. And also, when you do it, like, and you will do it, because you will not catch yourself doing it a lot of times, like 90% of the time you will still not catch yourself doing it. But later, if you have that realization, oh, I was judging myself then taking that and then releasing on it. Okay. And so, fear of being left alone if I stand up for me. But anyway, I'll release this for you. So, all the fear you have of being left alone if you stand up for you, let's release on that. And everywhere where you hate you for not choosing you, let's release on that as well. And now, I'm going to digress a little bit, but I'm going to like address something that you brought up, not choosing you. Okay. So there is this conversation which happens for all of us, which is like, at one point I'm like doing everything for everyone else, and I'm like, okay, so I don't want to okay, so I don't want to do things for people anymore, so now I'm going to choose me and I'm not going to do anything. And this whole conversation creates this kind of separation within our being, and that creates even more judgment. Okay, so it's not about either or, it's about just being aware that this is what I'm experiencing right now, and let me release on this. So okay, I now look, it's very clear to me that I'm there for everyone else, but I'm not there for me. So just release on that. So everywhere I'm being there for everyone else, but not being there for me. Because this is a judgment you have, that, oh, I'm there for everyone, but not for me. So I should be there for me. So basically, what you do is you just release that. And when you release that, what happens is that then you have the freedom, and then you can make whatever choice you're making without being without having any point of view about it, if that makes sense. So so accepting praise sportingly, I crave for being noticed, but when people do, I become conscious. So this is not part, this is this thing where you're looking for acknowledgement outside of you, but no matter how much acknowledgement you will get from outside, it's never enough. Because until you acknowledge yourself, no matter how much praise you will get from outside, it will not land in your universe. So everywhere where you are looking for acknowledgement outside of you, let's release on that. And everywhere you want acknowledgement, let's release on that as well. And everywhere when you do receive acknowledgement and appreciation, you are not able to receive it. So let's release on that as well. So we are not perfect, it's simply we have to accept it. So that's absolutely spot on. Of course we are not perfect, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's all about having all of that and not judging yourself, you know. And that is true allowance, and that is true love. Like being willing to see yourself as you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and having no point of view about it. Okay, so I'm going to just wrap up with a couple of clearings in the end. And here, I'm going to, it may sound a little bit weird, but this is the one which will create the maximum shift for everyone. Okay, so remaining in self judgment, self criticism, self blame, self wrongness, self doubt, and beating yourself up is safe and familiar. So I'm going to release on this. And then remaining with allowance of yourself, remaining with self forgiveness, and remaining with self love is unsafe and unfamiliar, because these are not spaces that we live by most of the time. Like we don't live in a, so remaining with all this is unsafe and unfamiliar. So let's release on that. So please, if you have any ideas for topics for future shows, let me know in the comments. And I just look at things, and when something pops, I'm like, okay, this is it, and I just choose it for the next show. Next week also, I will be on at the same time, right here. I hope you guys will join me. And please check out my free 5 days of money transformation program. And, a lot of people have gone through it, and people have really experienced big shifts doing it. The link is in the description. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, whether you are watching this live, whether you're watching the replay. Thank you so much, and I appreciate all of your contribution, your comments, and all of that. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week, same time. And please, please, please do give me some ideas for future topics, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.